The Haunted Gallery. Jojo squinted at the tap awning that lay over the door in the art gallery from across the street. The door was half open, and the knob on it had markings on it. What appeared like graffiti was painted all over the sides of the door. Bright colors, red and blue paint mostly. She was holding a paper in her hands. The ad on it didn't look anything like what she was looking at. The photo in the ad was a grainy one of a Victorian-style building with black wrought iron gates, hedges lined in front of it. Yet she recalled that this was Fifth Avenue, with the clothes stores, pawn shops, tenements. Heck, there was even a game arcade hedged between the art gallery and a five and dime shop, a place to swap your toys, used phones, or kitchenware. She'd heard you could do that too. The gallery she was looking at was more out of place than the photo in the ad. She folded and tucked the ad back in her jeans pocket. She hitched her backpack higher on her back and prepared to cross the street. Traffic wheezed past, horns blayed, the city hummed outside her earbuds. She was listening to Eminem's I'm Leaving Heaven. She made it past the traffic, but now the door was shut. She looked up and down the street. Blank faces walked past her on the sidewalk. A homeless man fiddled with a quarter someone just tossed at him on the floor. The vagrant was sitting with his back against the hydrant. She tried the knob, and the door swung open without a squeak. She stepped into a vast, dank hole. Jojo grimaced. What? She wanted to go back, but the door shut behind her. She saw now that there was a spring attached to the door. She relaxed, only a little. Still, it is odd that the gallery looked smaller from outside. Jojo gazed around and mused. All these spaces in here? Seriously? The walls were at least 10 feet high. Framed paintings hung from them, all the different shapes. Yellow electric lamps hung from the ceiling. There was another wall in the middle painted white. It was maybe 8 feet high and fell short of the ceiling by about 2 feet or more. More paintings hung from them. Wow. Her misgivings evaporated with every step she took. She grabbed her bag by the straps and gawked at the paintings. Oh my God. Her eyes shone. She was looking at the portrait of Gennama Tornabuoni by Domenico Ghirlandaio. She opened her bag and produced a notebook. She flipped through the pages, eyes still wide with pure excitement. She stopped at a page with a newspaper clip stapled to the top. The photo in the clip was not very clear, but it was a near-perfect match. 1488. Yes, Domenico, she murmured. It's beautiful, right? Jojo wheeled around, letting out a small yell. There was a man behind her. Jojo stepped back 2 steps. I'm sorry, I knocked before. No, you didn't. I saw you, said the man grimly. Then he smiled. Jojo thought he had many more teeth than a human should have, but they were very white and the gums very red. One could say they were rubicund even. But don't worry, the man added. He pointed a long, slim finger at the painting that caught Jojo's attention. This is one of my client's favorites. We have sold at least 5 copies of that. 5? How many copies did Domenico make of it? The man looked at her blankly. That smile looks permanently plastered. He ignored the question. Come on, let's get you set for the interview. Oh, I'm sorry, sir? Jojo hurried after him. He looked so foreign in pinstripe waistcoat and trousers, black brogue shoes and a white shirt with cuffs. He looked so gaunt and old. His hair was very white the first she saw him, but now sauntering after him, his hair looked more silvery than white. Or was it just the light? He stopped by a desk of mahogany hidden by the walls in the middle of the hall. There was a boy behind the desk. He was dressed in street clothes, unlike the old man. He had a glum look on his face, and he seemed to not want to look at Jojo. You want something? I'm not here for the employment. I know that's what the ad said. Jojo looked at the boy again, his eyes are pleading brown ones. He was blond and quite good looking. The smile on the face of the old man faltered. What are you talking about? She opened the note. I'm doing a school project on Renaissance art. I saw your ad and thought it's a better place to find first-hand knowledge instead of Google. She shrugged. The boy behind the desk seemed to squirm. His face colored up. Well, you've come to the right place then. The man looked at the boy and said, Benny will show you around. Jojo glanced in the boy's direction. Benny was getting sick or something. He wouldn't even look at her. The man quickly walked away, rounded a corner, and disappeared into one of those walls. You know what? If you don't want to show me around, I could... Get out! What? Benny stared gloomingly at Jojo across the large table, then at the wall behind where the man vanished. He leaned over the desk. Jojo caught his arm shaking. The two golden balls that served as his eyes strained against their sockets. His lips were drawn over his teeth, and specks of foam flew out when he spoke. This place is not what you think it is. You have to leave while you still... A door opened somewhere in the hall. It whined on its hinges that were probably rusty or something. Jojo was startled. When she looked at Benny's face again, it was wax white, like candles. The veins in his neck cracked like lightning streaks. He was shaking right from his lips down. His eyes darted around. They were like small black bees in his face. Jojo turned around too. The paintings were still on the walls, and they remained motionless, insensate. Jojo said, Are you coming down with something? 'Cause you look kind of... Listen to me. When the cartwheeling man starts turning, you must run for the lights. What? What are you talking about? What lights? Benny was hurrying around the desk now. When he came around, Jojo saw he was about her age. He had looked taller behind the desk because he had a long trunk and medium-sized legs. He wore a red sweater with white stripes, or was it the other way around? Perhaps it was blue denim and a pair of white Keds. Jojo couldn't tell clearly in the frenzy. He grabbed Jojo's hand and pulled her after him. Hey, what are you doing? She struggled. Let me go. As they went past the painting of Janama Tornabuni, she just happened to look at the portrait. Her jaw dropped open, and a scream started to rise from her throat. The woman in the portrait was staring at her with hateful eyes. She was reaching around, turning her body. She had grown a foot in there out of nothing, and her thigh was lifting out of the canvas from another place. She was leaning out of the canvas. Her blonde hair was hanging out. Her lips moved. You desecrator. Jojo wasn't sure if she had imagined the voice in her head or not, but she was following Benny now. They were running down the hall towards the door that now seemed a mile away. What is happening? She screamed. It is the gallery. That painting back there. Don't look at it, Benny snapped at her, and don't think about it. What? Jojo could barely feel her body as she scampered after the lithe-bodied boy. There was no way they could make it to the door before the scenario degenerated. Benny pulled her into another hallway. They stayed down it. There were only small frames here, and even they were going through some malignant transformation. They roiled, making small mewling noises that made Jojo's spine crawl with fright. Benny was panting. Here. He pulled Jojo into a corner where there were no paintings. The walls there were white and bare. She bent over, coughed and heaved. She coughed some more. Benny was staring at her when she raised herself. It will get worse. I want to get out of here. How do I... It's too late. They will come for you now. They smelled your scent. Your presence, too. Who's that man? She asked. He's not one thing. He's the place. The gallery. She shook her head. You're not making sense. You'll see. I don't want to see anything. I want to get out of here. Jojo walked out of the enclosure of the walls. She stepped into the hall where they just came through. The mewling sounds had stopped suddenly. The hall was quiet. Behind, she heard Benny's trembling voice whine. You're making a big mistake. Hello? Called Jojo. I'm sorry I came here. I just wanted some material for my schoolwork. Schoolwork. She froze. The sound gallery was talking. It was a harsh whisper. Who are you? She said softly. Who are you? Let me out, and I won't tell anyone. Not even the police, I swear. I swear, I swear, I swear. The voice echoed mockingly. Up ahead, the corridor she was walking in joined the other hallway where the large paintings were. She saw a shadow on the wall there. It had to belong to a tall person, for the shadow touched the ceiling's top. Her heart rapped in her chest. She wanted to move, but she could not. Her legs felt like chairs in the lecture hall at the university. They were bolted down and immovable. She felt as though she was under some spell that held her in place. Worse, it felt like the spell wanted her to see the abomination coming around the corner with her own eyes. The shadow stopped moving. Jojo's heart lurched. She held her breath. Just when she thought what she'd seen was nothing, maybe her fears were feeding her mind, or maybe Benny was the loony guy here, she saw a hand creep out of the corner. It held the side of the wall. The hand was so big it took a quarter of the space there. What followed tipped Jojo's reality on its feet, and then toppled it. The portrait of Jinama Tornabuni was standing there. The only thing was that it wasn't quite the real one. This one had burning red eyes, smoking nostrils and teeth like a million pins, clenching and unclenching. The movement of her teeth made little metallic noises. Clink, 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 like swords grinding against each other. Her skin was the color of gold. Her hair was copper curls, and they floated around her humongous head as they would underwater. Her garment had gone from white to flowing swirls of yellow gelatinous material. Desecrator, she hissed. Debtor through time. She was getting closer, her naked feet making slushy stamping sounds every time it hit the floor. She reached out with one hand. The other had something in it, but Jojo couldn't see it. She was in a trance. Her head was filled with the music of corruption sailing towards her on the putrid breath of Jinama Tornabuni. She heard another voice. This one was drowned by the portrait's own. It was coming to her from a faraway place. Don't think about her, don't look at her, Jojo. Look away. But she couldn't look away. The burning eyes of the portrait held her in place. The woman's other hand was rising. In it was a sword. The sword burned with cold fire. It was like red molten ice. Ice that moved with a fluid consistency of rage. Just as she became sentient enough through sheer will to get out of harm's way, she felt her body lift off the ground, somewhat levitating. The next seconds happened like it was in the movies. The hero or heroine gets saved by another, by being pushed out of the way just before the villain's blow landed. She felt suspended in the air, and she was falling. She hit the ground just as the sword hit the spot where she had been seconds before. There was a loud clang, a flash of that cold fire, sparks of it flew, and the woman's hot face turned to the boy behind the girl, Benny. You! The voice roared, but now it came from outside Jojo's head. She scrambled to her feet. Benny dragged her. They ran past the bumbling portrait whose movements were kind of slow on account of her size. The boy and girl skipped down the hallway again, making for the door, but someone had already beaten them to it. Melancholia was straddling the door, barricading the duo's quest to escape an imminent and avoidable doom. Jojo swiveled just in time to catch a glimpse of the canvas of Albrecht Dürer's painting. It was now empty. Oh God, gasped Jojo. Her heart sank, expecting the worst.